You're really desperate to close this deal, huh?
As a sales rep, I visited one of our major clients for a business meeting. But during the discussion, the department head, Kimberly, tore up the contract right in front of me and even scattered the pieces over my head. I silently held back my anger at Kimberly's reckless behavior. Kimberly, look behind you. But in the next moment, the company's CEO, Martin, appeared with a furious expression and began questioning Kimberly. I felt a sense of relief, knowing her once shining career was likely over, but I still made a request to Martin. My name is Sean Mendes, 41 years old. I work in the sales department of a wood processing company, and we specialize in warm wooden bedding. Currently, I'm progressing well in my career as a manager, but my boss has suggested maybe it's time to settle down. Being single myself, I've been putting effort into attending singles events and looking for a partner on weekends. But I haven't found anyone who seems like a good match. Meanwhile, I keep hearing more and more marriage announcements at the office. When my younger colleague told me I'm getting married, I congratulated him, but deep down, I was feeling increasingly anxious. However, since I was at work, I switched gears and focused on my duties. Today was an important day, as I had a business meeting with a major furniture manufacturer. Their products are expensive and high quality, making them popular even overseas, and they consistently rank #1 in the furniture category on online sales sites. If I can showcase our company's technology to this well-known manufacturer and secure a contract, our company's recognition will skyrocket. I might even hear talk of a promotion for myself, being the driving force behind this success. The more I imagined positive outcomes, the more confidence welled up inside me. I packed the necessary documents into my bag and called out to my colleagues. I'm heading out for the meeting. Wish me luck. As I stepped outside to their shouts of good luck, a wave of heat hit my face. Lately, the temperature has been reaching 95 degrees, and we've been experiencing a severe heat wave, with TV constantly advising heat stroke precautions. To avoid being affected by the heat, I made sure to hydrate well before heading to the client's headquarters. My name is Sean from Georgia Craft, and I have a 2 p.m. appointment. Upon arriving at the headquarters, I gave my name to the receptionist and was quickly guided to the meeting room to wait for my business counterpart. As I sipped water from my bottle, I heard a knock, and the door opened.
Sorry to keep you waiting, Sean.
It was Kimberly, the department head. Despite being 45, she had a dignified face and an air of elegance. I had met her before at a joint networking event and exchanged business cards with her. Since she had shown interest in our products, I saw this as an opportunity and arranged this meeting. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. I appreciate it. I immediately stood up and greeted to Kimberly. In the next moment, she looked me up and down from my toes to the top of my head and let out a snort.
Coming in all sweaty without caring about your appearance. Are you underestimating our company?
What? On my way here, I had been exposed to the intense heat and was sweating profusely from my forehead. I hurriedly wiped it with a tissue, but it was no use. The tissue was soon soaked.
Well, whatever. Let's get straight to the business.
Kimberly, who had frowned at my appearance, briskly headed to the conference room. I followed her, feeling a bit flustered. Even though she clearly showed a negative attitude, I mentally steeled myself to recover. Once we arrived at the conference room, I immediately pulled out the documents and started the negotiation. With a strong determination to make this a success, I passionately presented to Kimberly, but once again, she snorted at me. Her attitude had been bothering me since earlier, so I decided to speak up. If there's anything that concerns you, please feel free to point it out. I wondered if there was something wrong, but Kimberly, with a brazen attitude, crossed her legs.
You're really desperate to close this deal, huh?
What? Feeling insulted, I was left speechless as Kimberly tore up the documents I handed her and scattered to pieces over my head. I had meticulously prepared for this day, even working overtime at times, and I thought I had completed the best materials. Despite this, Kimberly sneered at my presentation and looked down on me, saying, "If you want me to sign a contract, get on your knees and beg." Suppressing my anger at her extreme rudeness, I suddenly noticed someone standing behind her, and I couldn't help but tremble. The trembling wasn't out of fear but from trying to hold back my laughter. "Kimberly, look behind you."
What?
The moment she turned around, Kimberly let out a pitiful shriek. Eek. It was Martin, the CEO of the company, standing right behind her.
Martin.
Martin glared at her with a furious expression. It was clear to anyone that he was extremely angry. Keeping his eyes locked on her, he finally spoke.
"I happened to be passing by the conference room and heard your voice, Kimberly. What have you done to Sean?"
Well, that is.
Realizing that Martin had overheard everything, Kimberly's face twisted with discomfort.
"Well, just as you told John. Why don't you tell me the same thing?"
Seeing Kimberly hesitate, I answered in her place. She said, "You are really desperate to close this deal." Kimberly shot me a sharp glare and let out a small, annoyed click of her tongue. But as soon as Martin cleared his throat, she was back to being nervous.
"John, did she say anything else to you?"
When Martin asked me, I recalled everything that had happened since I arrived at their office. Kimberly misunderstood my sweaty appearance and thought I was disrespecting their company.
That's not true. I only pointed out that his appearance was untidy.
Kimberly quickly tried to defend herself, but Martin scolded her.
"You always commute by car, so you wouldn't know. Coming to our office in this heat is no small feat."
Exactly. With temperatures consistently exceeding 95 degrees, when we scheduled the meeting, I had actually suggested holding it remotely. That way, we could both stay in cool rooms and avoid going out. I thought it was a good suggestion, but Kimberly firmly rejected it.
If you want to continue doing business with us, show it through your actions. We're not so lenient that you can secure a contract without putting in the effort.
My deepest apologies. I'll visit your office on the scheduled day. In the end, I was pressured into visiting in person. I pulled out my water bottle, showing Martin that I had been properly hydrating. I sweated a lot from drinking too much water, and I ended up making Kimberly uncomfortable. I apologize.
"Not at all. Hydrating to prevent heat stroke is absolutely the right decision."
As I apologized, Martin quickly stepped in to back me up. Then I turned to Kimberly and gave her a smile. Thank you so much for pointing out the importance of appearance. Perhaps because Martin was there, Kimberly seemed flustered and showed a bitter expression.
Nope, not at all. If it's still hot, let's turn up the air conditioning, shall we?
When she quickly lowered the temperature on the air conditioning, the torn documents fluttered to the floor.
What's this?
Martin bent down to pick up a piece of paper that had fallen near his feet, looking at it curiously. Oh, that's my document that Kimberly tore up.
Tore up?
Upon hearing my words, Martin glared at Kimberly with an even more furious expression. She had already lost her nerve since Martin arrived, and now her face was completely pale.
Why did you tear up Sean's documents?
That's because.
Kimberly, sweating nervously, glanced between Martin and me, trying to gauge our reactions. Her once confident demeanor had vanished, and she now looked as uneasy as a petty thief caught in the act. I had hoped she would show some remorse, but when she blurted out, "I didn't do it out of malice," I was deeply disappointed.
I only did it because I expected Sean to produce even better documents. You could say it was an act of tough love.
Rather than apologizing, Kimberly defiantly admitted that she deliberately tore up the documents. For someone who had looked at me as if I were beneath her, it was laughable to hear her talk about love. So, when you threw the pieces on my head, was that out of love too? I peeled a piece of paper off my head and held it up for Kimberly to see. When she threw it on me, the sweat on my head caused the paper to stick, making it difficult to remove. I had put a lot of effort into creating those documents to introduce our products, so it really hurt when they were torn. Martin's eyes widened in shock. And then he started trembling with anger, shouting at Kimberly.
Kimberly, how could you do such a thing to Sean?
Eek.
Frightened, she backed away as if trying to escape.
Did you really think you were above him and act all high and mighty?
No, I didn't mean that at all.
Then apologize to Sean right here, right now.
Following Martin's command, Kimberly lowered her head alongside him.
Sean, I sincerely apologize for the disrespectful behavior of my subordinate. It was a failure in my management.
I'm deeply sorry.
Kimberly also stammered out an apology. But inside, I felt conflicted. The only reason Kimberly apologized was because Martin forced her to. If he hadn't happened to walk by the conference room or stormed in, she probably wouldn't have shown any remorse at all. She may have acted superior to someone in a lower position, but she couldn't stand up to someone above her. I wished I could have been the one to put Kimberly in her place. Once I leave, she'll likely be severely reprimanded by Martin and might even lose her job. If that happens, I'll never get another chance to show her up.
In order to prevent something like this from happening again, Kimberly will face strict punishment.
Could you please not fire her? Martin and Kimberly were left speechless by my words. Although I can forgive Kimberly's actions, the truth is that my presentation didn't resonate with her. I realize now that I lack the necessary skills.
Sean, you're such a kind person.
Kimberly, relieved that she wouldn't be fired, looked at me with teary eyes. Feeling a chill from her gaze, I ignored her and spoke to Martin instead. I'll be taking my leave now. I look forward to maintaining a good relationship with your company moving forward.
Thank you, Sean. We truly appreciate your understanding. Let me walk you out.
The three of us headed outside together. It was early evening, but the sun was still in the sky, and the thick humidity made me feel lightheaded. It's still so hot, even in the evening.
It must have been even hotter during the day. Thank you for coming all the way to our office.
Martin, looking genuinely concerned, apologized, and I thanked him in return. Thank you for your concern. I'm quite resilient, so there's no need to worry. I smiled, trying to show that I was fine, and Martin let out a relieved sigh. When I glanced over at Kimberly, she looked very uncomfortable in the heat, her face contorted in distress. I hear you usually commute in an air-conditioned car. This heat must be tough on you. I'd eased her playfully, and sweat began to pour from her forehead, ruining her makeup.
Of Martin. Can I go back inside now?
What are you talking about? Go buy Sean a drink before he leaves in this heat.
But
Kimberly was forced to run to the vending machine by Martin. When she returned with a sports drink, sweat was dripping down her face. Thank you for going out of your way. I'll enjoy it. It seemed that the heat had gotten to her even more after running, and she struggled to even respond. Her once neatly worn shirt was now stained with sweat, making her look quite disheveled. Would you like a tissue? Your appearance is quite untidy.
no, thank you.
Kimberly wiped her sweat with her own tissue. But in doing so, her makeup came off, revealing deep wrinkles. Not wanting to stare any longer, as it would be rude, I quickly headed home while they saw me off. A few days later, I received a phone call from Martin, who apologized again. Although Kimberly wasn't fired at my request, she was demoted as punishment for ruining the deal and for her disrespectful behavior towards a client. She was reassigned from the headquarters to a local branch office. Although the deal fell through, I decided to use this experience to motivate myself to work even harder. However, even days after the meeting, I occasionally remembered Kimberly's teary gaze and felt a shiver down my spine. Since she didn't have a wedding ring on her finger, she is probably single. I, too, want to leave my bachelor life behind, but work keeps piling up, making it hard to attend singles events or social gatherings. Even during work, I've started paying more attention to my appearance and fitness, and I've been going to the gym to make a good impression on potential partners. At first, working out was tough, but I've grown to enjoy it, and I can feel myself getting stronger. Soon, I completely forgot about Kimberly and found fulfillment in both my work and personal life. A month after the meeting, my hard work finally paid off, and I successfully secured a contract with another major company. Our company's development team had invented a new material made from recycled waste, obtained a patent, and integrated it into a new product line. This lightweight, durable, and environmentally friendly material was perfect for making beds and desks, and soon, various manufacturers approached us for licensing agreements. Thanks to this breakthrough, our company's recognition soared, and we established connections with major corporations. As a result of securing the contract, I was promoted to department head, and my salary doubled. When I updated my annual income on the matchmaking site profile, I was pleasantly surprised by the sudden influx of interest from many women. Looks like a high income really is attractive, I chuckled to myself, but at the same time, I was enjoying this new wave of popularity. One day, my boss informed me that I was being assigned to a branch office to help train new employees. With the physical strength I'd gained from working out at the gym, I enthusiastically responded, "Leave it to me." After arriving at the branch office, I focused on training the new hires, and soon enough, their skill levels began to improve noticeably. When teaching my subordinates, I advised them, regardless of rank, always use polite language during work hours. Our company has always upheld the motto, courtesy even among close associates, and it's mandatory for superiors to use polite language when speaking to their subordinates. Because of this, no one becomes emotional, and there are no overbearing bosses. As a result, no employees leave due to interpersonal issues, and our company boasts a low turnover rate. We may not be a large company, but I hope we can appeal to recent graduates and job applicants by showcasing our strengths. While the younger employees were out on sales calls, I was handling tasks on my computer in the office. It was still scorching hot outside, and I had told them to return as soon as possible. Just as I was about to go buy drinks before they got back, the office intercom buzzed. Who could it be? I don't have any appointments today. Curious, I headed to the entrance of the office. There, standing in front of me, was Kimberly. Kimberly, the department head back then.
And you're Sean.
She was sweating, probably from walking around in the heat. She looked shocked to see me, but for some reason, she also seemed pleased. "Why are you here? This is my branch."
I work just one stop away, and I came here from there.
It turns out that my assigned branch and Kimberly's reassigned location were coincidentally close to each other. When I heard she had been demoted, I thought I'd never see her again. I had planned to get my revenge someday, but now that she appeared so suddenly, I wasn't sure how to react. As I frowned at her, Kimberly wiped the sweat from her forehead and quickly straightened her shirt.
I'm not a department head anymore. I've been demoted and am now just a regular employee.
Oh, that's right. Until this moment, I had forgotten about Kimberly's existence. Now that we'd unexpectedly run into each other here, I wasn't sure how to handle the situation, so I glanced up at the sky. In the afternoon, the sun was high in the sky, and the heat was even more intense. But then I realized this was a great opportunity to show her up, so I puffed out my chest and said, "Actually, after you were demoted, I was promoted to department head."
Ha!
Kimberly was shocked to learn that our roles had reversed. In my mind, I thought, how about that? I can achieve great things too, with a smug look on my face. "So, what brings you here today?"
Actually, I'm out here doing sales, promoting our company's products.
It seems that after being demoted, Kimberly was tasked with doing the same sales work as a regular employee. I never would have expected the once arrogant Kimberly to be out here sweating and doing sales rounds.
I never imagined I'd run into you again, Sean.
Well, I've been assigned to this branch, so here I am. Despite what must have been an awkward reunion, she looked at me with an oddly intense gaze. Uncomfortable under her stare, I averted my eyes and said, "So, you're here for sales, right? I'll at least listen to what you have to say."
Oh, thank you.
I could have turned her away at the door, but remembering how she had treated me before, I decided to see just how good she was at sales now. As I led her to the company's reception room, I heard her mumble, "This must be fate." Hoping to avoid any trouble, I sat down across from Kimberly. But she just kept staring at me.
Have you been going to the gym? You look so much more rugged and handsome than before.
Suddenly complimented on my appearance, I was caught off guard. Thanks.
I've always been into strong, muscular men. And you're just my type, Sean.
She started rambling on about unrelated topics, not getting to the point of her visit at all. Annoyed, I forcibly steered the conversation back on track. If you're not here to talk business, then please leave.
I'm sorry, I was just so happy to see you again.
Blushing, she handed me the documents. The Kimberly I remembered was quick to criticize appearances and often used her position to belittle others. But now, despite being demoted, she seemed much more subdued. Her drastic change in behavior left me feeling both confused and suspicious. Once she was ready, Kimberly launched into her sales pitch like a machine gun.
As you probably know, our company offers high-quality furniture tailored to meet a variety of needs.
She kept speaking faster and faster, not even pausing to see if I was following along. Unable to keep up with a rapid-fire delivery, I listened in a daze.
So what do you think?
Huh? Before I realized it, her pitch was over, and she was looking at me with anticipation. I glanced back at the materials she had handed me before starting and replied, "Forgive me for being blunt, but your sales pitch was terrible."
What?
She had seemed so confident, but from my perspective, it felt like being caught in a runaway train. You continued talking without waiting for my responses, blasting through your pitch like a machine gun with no regard for whether I was listening. That's not how a salesperson should behave.
But I tried my best.
Kimberly's shoulders slumped under the weight of my harsh critique. But I wasn't done yet. Especially this material. Did you create it yourself?
Yes, I wrote it to make our products easy to understand.
I flipped through the pages, pointing out a specific section. There are no concrete numbers, and the text is riddled with typos. Even a child could write something full of empty platitudes. As I continued my scathing evaluation, Kimberly's face turned redder by the moment. Then I delivered the final blow. I was curious to see the capabilities of a former department head from a major company, but this was a huge disappointment.
That's so cruel.
Crushed by my assessment, Kimberly's face crumpled, and she looked like she was on the verge of tears. I was about to ask her to leave, but she stubbornly refused to give up.
Please, I'm begging you. If I don't get good results, I'll lose my job.
That's not my concern. Please leave. Since her demotion, Kimberly had been met with cold stares from her coworkers who knew the reason for her transfer. On top of that, if she didn't improve her sales performance, Martin had warned her that she might be fired for incompetence. She was running out of time, which is why she was so desperate to succeed in sales, no matter what it took. Had she not looked down on me and acted so disrespectfully, she could have remained a department head at the main office. But now she was suffering the consequences of her own actions.
I deeply regret how I treated you, Sean. If you have any pity for me, please sign a contract.
Tears streaming down her face, she held out the contract and a pen. Although I felt a pang of sympathy for her as a fellow salesperson, I hadn't forgotten how she treated me. "I won't be signing anything. If you don't leave now, I'll have to contact Martin at the main office."
Tattling to Martin. That's so low.
Kimberly, her contract rejected, glared at me through her tears.
Just because you've gotten a bit more attractive, don't get cocky.
"Oh, but I have to admit, Kimberly, it's thanks to you that I started paying more attention to my appearance." I said it casually, and she suddenly stopped crying and blushed again.
So, does that mean you became handsome for me?
What? Her unexpected comment left me speechless. The reason I started taking care of my appearance was for myself, not for her. She was just the catalyst. "You're reading way too much into this. Aren't you misunderstanding something here?"
But you're not wearing a wedding ring, so you're single, right? We're around the same age, and I think we'd make a great couple.
When she smiled, a shiver ran down my spine. I had sensed her intense gaze when we first met again, and now it was clear she had feelings for me. I never imagined that someone I found so difficult to deal with would end up liking me. Even though I'd forgotten about her, having a woman with whom I had such a rocky history suddenly show interest in me was anything but pleasant. To make sure Kimberly gave up, I steeled myself and said firmly, "I have no intention of marrying someone who looks down on others. Please leave." When I glared at her, she was shocked and started crying again.
You're such a cruel man.
Kimberly grabbed her bag and stormed out of the office. Finally, it was quiet again, and I felt relieved. Just then, the younger employees returned from their sales rounds, and we all took a break to hydrate. An hour later, as I was sorting documents with the team, the office intercom buzzed again. Great, another cold call. Annoyed, I asked one of my subordinates to handle it, but he quickly returned, looking alarmed. When he told me who was at the door, I was so surprised that everyone in the room stood up. "Police, what's going on?" I wondered if someone had committed a crime, but there was no one in the branch who could have done anything wrong. Thinking it might just be a routine patrol, I decided to see what was happening. Several police officers entered, saying, "We received a report that someone here was being harassed." Harassment? By whom? As I voiced my confusion, a familiar woman stepped out from behind the officers.
It was him. He harassed me, so arrest him.
Kimberly. Apparently, after being sent away, Kimberly ran to the police station and reported that I had harassed her. The officers glared at me suspiciously, clearly thinking something was off. "Wait a minute. This is a misunderstanding." I quickly tried to explain, but they responded, "We'll hear the full story at the station," and began leading me toward the police car. If this kept up, I'd be treated as a criminal and cause trouble for the company. Just as I was frantically trying to think of a way out of this, Kimberly suddenly said,
Wait.
She stopped the officers and turned to me.
If you don't want to be arrested, sign a contract and marry me.
What? Her demand shocked not only me but also the officers.
If you marry me, I'll forgive everything.
It seemed Kimberly had used the police as leverage to secure both a contract and a marriage proposal. Rather than feeling angry, I was filled with disgust at her underhanded tactics. The officers, struggling to keep up with the sudden turn of events, decided to hear both sides before heading to the station. First, Kimberly claimed that when we were alone, I had persistently harassed her, refusing to take no for an answer.
I kept telling him no, but he kept touching my hands and body.
She even faked tears to gain the officer's sympathy, but hearing her lies made me furious. Stop making things up. You're the one who showed up and invited. I immediately asserted my innocence to the officers. To convince them, I knew I needed solid evidence. When they asked if I had any evidence, I racked my brain. That's it. We have security cameras. There are security cameras installed throughout the office, including the reception room. If we check the footage, it should show the interaction between Kimberly and me. Hearing this, Kimberly began to sweat and look visibly shaken.
Wait, are you really going to check it?
Of course, I'm not about to have my life ruined over a false accusation. I led the officers to the security room to show them the recorded footage. As expected, it clearly captured everything that happened between Kimberly and me. When the officers saw how she had been flirting with me, they quickly shifted their suspicion from me to her.
Well,
Unable to tack her way out of it, Kimberly was clearly panicking. She had filed a false report, mobilized the police, and tried to frame me for something I didn't do. What she did was a serious act of harassment. This is not how someone working for a major company should behave. Did the heat get to your head?
please forgive me.
Kimberly apologized, begging for forgiveness. Why would you make a report like that?
I got angry when you refused the contract, and I thought that if I threatened you with arrest, you'd marry me.
When pressed for an explanation, she confessed her motives in a small voice. Her selfish reasoning angered not just me but the officers as well. Seeing our reactions, Kimberly hurriedly apologized.
I'm sorry, but it's true that I'm in love with you, Sean.
What? Kimberly admitted that she fell for me a month ago, on the day of the business meeting. Although she had been scolded by Martin and thought she was going to be fired, she said she fell in love with me when I said, "Please don't fire her."
I admired your masculinity back then, Sean. I tried to give up after being demoted, but when we met again, I felt it was fate.
She gazed at me with a love-struck expression, but all I felt was unease. Having her bring the police here out of spite made me feel nothing but discomfort. I wasn't defending you. I just wanted to make you eat your words, the department head back then. I made sure to clarify that I had no interest in her and said firmly, "I don't like you, Kimberly. Everything you do creeps me out."
You think I'm creepy? How can you say such a horrible thing to a woman?
Denied. Kimberly became emotional and tried to grab me. But the officers quickly restrained her, and all she could do was scream.
You heartless jerk. You led me on. Marry me now.
No, I won't. After watching the security footage, the officers were convinced of my innocence. I also told them about my previous trouble with Kimberly. Hearing about her past behavior, the officers sympathized with me, saying, "That must have been tough." Finally, I was able to prove my innocence, and I felt a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. Thank goodness. I'll leave the rest to the police.
This is not good at all. If this keeps up, I'll get caught. Please help me."
As I sighed with relief, Kimberly started pleading for help. She struggled fiercely as the officers tried to lead her to the police car.
"I don't want to end up alone for the rest of my life."
As she shouted, I slowly approached her. The officers warned me, it's dangerous to get too close, but I stood in front of her anyway. Seeing me, Kimberly looked at me with hopeful eyes.
"So you do care about me after all."
But to her dreamy gaze, I replied, "Actually, I have a girlfriend. I'm planning to propose to her soon."
"What?"
In truth, during my time of matchmaking, I was introduced to a woman by a mutual acquaintance, and our relationship developed from there. My girlfriend is a year younger than me and runs her own cosmetics company. She's classy, considerate, and straightforward, and we click right away. Our relationship has been going well, and I've already bought an engagement ring. So, I'll be leaving now. I hope you find someone good soon too, Kimberly."
"That's not fair."
Devastated, she was led to the police car and taken to the station. Later, Kimberly underwent a long interrogation and was fined for filing a false report. Martin, who had been informed by me, rushed to the station and harshly reprimanded her. A few days later, Martin visited the branch where I worked and deeply apologized to me. I could have pressed charges for business obstruction and defamation, but we settled the matter privately after receiving a large compensation. Unfortunately, I had to cut ties with his company. I couldn't forgive a company that allowed one of their employees to behave so disgracefully. Afterward, Kimberly was promptly dismissed without further discussion due to her actions during the incident. She desperately pleaded for forgiveness until the end, but it was clear there was no room for leniency, and she was given no chance for redemption. If she had given up on me and focused on her work, she might have been able to regain trust and avoid being fired. But Kimberly was so desperate to get married that she went to extreme lengths to find a partner. When she saw me again, she convinced herself it was fate. She tried to marry me by any means necessary, but in the end, she was rejected and lost her job. Later, Kimberly married a wealthy man. But it turned out he was a con artist who stole all her savings, leaving her penniless. Having lost everything due to her impatience in both work and marriage, Kimberly had to start over from scratch. However, by the time she got back on her feet, it would likely be difficult for her to find a husband due to her age. Meanwhile, after the incident, I proposed to my girlfriend, and we had a beautiful wedding. We invited everyone who had supported me, including my coworkers, and received their warm congratulations. Afterward, I purchased a lovely new home, and my wife and I began our happy new life together. Meeting the love of my life made me feel like the happiest man alive.